Hi, welcome to Frame by Frame, a series celebrating the dynamic voices of filmmakers across New York City. I'm Leslie Fields-Cruz, the Executive Director of Black Public Media. Joining us in this episode are three exceptional filmmakers whose films, supported by Black Public Media, exemplify the power of storytelling to move audiences and affect change. I'm thrilled to introduce them. Sophia Clark. Sophia has produced and directed for a range of acclaimed productions, including Channel 13's Treasures of New York, ESPN's Stuart 27, and PBS Digital Studios, in which they earned 4 New York Emmy nominations. Sophia is also the producer-director of Black Public Media's Anthem Award-winning mini-doc series, Be Heard, I Am Who I Say I Am. Divad Durant. On top of filmmaking, Divad is an organizer, an NYC firefighter, and a student at Fierstein's Graduate School of Cinema. His film, Goodnight Sun, shot in Brazil, was featured in The Nation magazine for its international collaboration. Divad is the director of Sweet Samara. And Tracii McGregor. Tracii is a journalist, filmmaker, and the founder of 8 Million Stories, a multi-platform nonfiction production company amplifying underrepresented voices through documentary and oral history. A pioneering hip-hop media executive, media coach to high-profile music artists, and cultural commentator, Tracii is the producer, director of The Forgotten Ones. And now, let's jump right in. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining me here at Frame by Frame. I am excited to get into this conversation and to learn about your films, and of course, I have a few questions for you. So, I'm going to start with you, Sophia. You know, your film, I Am Who I Say I Am, it came out of a commission that Black Public Media had. So, tell me about the film.
The commission was specifically to make a social series about gender affirmation, and so I wanted to make this sort of like 3-part portrait of people who were exploring gender affirmation in like very relatable circumstances, and those were work, within their family, and then with their healthcare provider. So it came out of that commission, and then it just evolved into the telling of these 3 stories.
What was it that confirmed that's what you wanted to do? That's how you wanted to tell that story?
It always kind of felt very personal. You know, I'm a non-binary person, and I had worked with Black Public Media before on another series related to another social issue. And I think because I had already had a kind of like blossoming relationship with the people that had asked for this proposal, I kind of felt like I could just lead with being myself. I just wanted to make something that felt casual and like so many times we talk about gender and it still feels so ethereal. I just wanted someone to say like, oh, if I'm at work and I accidentally misgender someone, I can just say, I'm sorry, I meant such and such, and move on. I just wanted people to have really clear takeaways, because I just felt like that was missing in some of the conversations I was having.
Yeah. You know, I've heard this term, micro-documentaries. And as I said earlier, you know, we commissioned because I was like, we just want something on social media, right? But can you tell the audience what is a micro-documentary and how does it fit in this social media platform? Expand on that.
So when I say micro-doc, I mean like less than 5 minutes. And I was very intentional by using the word doc as well, because I wanted people to know that this was coming from a place of responsibility, where I felt a deep responsibility to the subjects and for them to tell me things in their own words, that there was that integrity piece to it. And before documentaries change forever by the nature of how people make things now, I just wanted to hold on to that part of it, the integrity part, which is why when I talk about it, I'll say microdoc.
What has been the impact since it has been released? It's been out for a couple of years now.
So in terms of like how they were impacted, what's great about all 3 of these folks is that they get to be themselves every day. So talking about themselves didn't feel different. I thought the impact for me was really seeing in their communities, like their close friends, their families, getting to see their loved one. I think so often when we see queer people, trans people, non-binary people, they're so often portrayed as the survivor, the victim of a circumstance. And here were three people telling their own story in their own terms. And I think a lot of the social media community, a lot of the people in my life are not used to seeing people just be casually themselves, neither victim nor superhero. And so it was nice, I think, again, just to for people to know that, like, yes, we are your educators, we're your neighbors, we're the people creating art for you, we're the people helping your child learn how to brush their teeth. We're among you, and if you want to talk to us, you can just talk to us like regular people. And so I think what I saw was kind of like this kind of feeling of like, yes, we can talk about this with a little bit more fun.
Thank you, Sophia. All right, let's take a look at I Am Who I Say I Am.
Yesterday, when I met someone for the first time, I introduced myself as Jay. And then about 5 minutes later, I was like, I use they, them pronouns. I want you to know, even if you're thinking about me, to be thinking about me with the right pronouns. So just throwing them out there. My name is Janelle J. Lawrence, and my pronouns are they, them. I am not a gender expert, but I think I'm really rooted in loving everyone, and loving them means affirming them in whatever they bring to the table. I love you for being you. That does not make me a gender expert at all. Because I also mess up. I just try, which is all I really ask for too. I am a teacher. I run a department that is all people of color, actually, which I feel really proud of. And I advocated for that. And because we are all people of color in that space, I know that they try really hard to like hold on to my like pronouns. Even before I was the chair, like the chair before me was a Black man, and he was maybe in his 70s. And Bill was so sweet because Bill would really try to get my pronouns right. And in conversation would be like, Janelle, that person. And I was just like, it's okay, Bill, you're trying so hard. Just keep trying, you're gonna figure it out. You can use my name, like affirming in that way also felt really great, even though professionally, Bill was not getting like the use of a pronoun and using my pronouns right. There was this level of seeing me. There was this level of trying.
Thanks, Sophia. All right, Divad, we're coming to you. Your film is captivating. It's a captivating short documentary. Tell us about Sweet Samara.
Sweet Samara is a short film about a Black farmer named Jalal Sabor who works in upstate New York, and he uses the practice of sugaring maple syrup to support his abolition work and also honor the practice of abolition through sugaring and its ancestral connections to indigenous folks from the Northeast.
I hear the word abolition. And of course, when I think about abolition, I'm thinking, you know, the era of American slavery. But when you're talking about abolition, or how Jalal is using sugaring around abolition, it's a different form of abolition, or it's a modern abolition. Can you tell us a little bit more about Jalal and that work and his connection to it?
Yeah, absolutely. The practice of sugaring as an abolitionist practice derived from the 19th century, when abolitionists used to boycott the slave trade by finding an alternative to cane sugar. Jalal, as an abolitionist in upstate New York today, who is part of a collective of Black farmers who grow produce and provide food to incarcerated families and also provide nourishment to Black farmers. They practice abolition by acknowledging the, discrepancies that exist between communities like the Bronx, East New York, Brooklyn, that exist in food deserts, but are also connected to upstate.
One of the other things that I really liked about Sweet Samara is your use of poetry. And as a filmmaker, we always have to figure out, the approach. What made you bring poetry into this short?
The poetry allowed the narrative to create connections that are hard to make in typical linear storytelling. And because of Jalal's story being a story that felt layered, that also felt nonlinear, poetry became a way for us to discover and work our way through this story and the many connections of Jalal's work and his family and the many other families who are impacted.
So your film has streamed on Black Public Media's Afropop Digital Shorts. It has over 14,000 views at this point, and we think that's amazing. Did you think it would get that many views that broad?
It felt like a project that wasn't going to be a project that brought in a big, large, mainstream audience. It felt like a project that was really supposed to facilitate conversation or really to hold space and hold community. And so in that way, it felt very intimate. But since it is supported through Black Public Media and exists in a space where it is accessible, it makes sense that something that feels small and intimate is able to reach many communities who may reflect the same values. I've also had really great experiences sharing this film in spaces that are not typical spaces for films to end up like film festivals. I feel like it was most recently screened at Black Maria Micro Cinema in sort of like this third space, film space, where we are, I think, need to lean more into as independent filmmakers with sharing our work.
I get excited when I hear filmmakers talking about taking their films out into the public, and because that, for me, is another aspect of public media, and having them experience different forms of film, especially experimental. So let's take a look at Sweet Samara.
Growing up, my dad wasn't around, and a big part of him not being around was because he was in prison. I think I was grappling with where is my direction, how to deal with my anger as a kid. I got arrested for I don't know, some bullshit. I was in a jail and I was just like, man, all these Black people are in jail. This is not for me and this is not for anybody that I look like. It was definitely this realization of Black people in chains is everything that I am against.
Every year the seasons return like familiar faces. Long forgotten loves return to visitation. Everyone deserves something sweet. A red freedom, a hot thing bubbling up to make them new. Something to look forward to.
Thank you, Divad. All right, Tracii, tell us about The Forgotten Ones.
The Forgotten Ones tells the story of Billy Brown Smith, who is an elder who lived in Hollywood and through a series of unfortunate events found himself living on the streets off and on for about 40 years.
I grew up in Southern California. It's a car culture, right? And it's so easy for you to just drive by, you don't meet anybody, you don't talk to anybody, you get to your spot and you know the people at the party or the work that you're in. How did you meet Willie?
Well, I was driving off the off-ramp in Hollywood, the Gower Street off-ramp. And Billy and another guy, John, would be there panhandling. So that's where I met him. I was taking my kid to his preschool right there off of the off-ramp. And I'd see Billy almost every day, and he'd be there with a cup and a smile, sometimes a little story. But yeah, that's how I met him.
Wow. I know where that off-ramp is, and I know that there are a number of unhoused there, so I can imagine that meeting. I'm going to talk a little bit about approach with your film as well, because the only voice that we hear is Billy's. Why is that? Because sometimes sometimes filmmakers, they want to bring in the experts to talk about this. They want to, create a profile, but through others' voices. Why is it that you just chose his?
Well, the film was actually born out of an audio story that I was working on. I was in graduate school at the time, and we were all charged with doing research on the homeless situation in Los Angeles, which is pervasive. Through my research, I found that the largest growing population on the street was elderly people. And I immediately thought about speaking to Billy. In my audio piece, I did bring in other voices. But through my interview with him, I'm like, the story that he told me, his story, was so powerful, and I felt like I wanted to do more. So I went back and shot with him afterwards and made this film. Why is he the only voice? Because I felt like he, someone who lived through this experience, he was the expert. I didn't need to hear from anybody else,
How did you make sure that your understanding of the world didn't impede on his understanding of the world?
I had an amazing professor, and he's just like, cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. Less is more, less is more. We don't have to tell everything. And it was difficult to keep whittling it down. I come from a background in journalism where, you're writing and you're expounding. And so for me, coming into this space of filmmaking, my professor really stressed that you don't have to tell everything.
You mentioned wanting to make sure that people hear the story, or that they understand it. It's been featured on the PBS Online Film Festival. It's been featured on Black Public Media's for-pop digital short series. How important is it that a short, especially a short like yours, has a multi-platform distribution? Or are there other ways, are you thinking about bringing that story to the public?
Well, I did do some festivals. The first festival it got into, it was during the pandemic, we did the festivals. And then the film sat. I didn't know what I would do with it. And then I discovered Black Public Media. And I submitted, and I actually forgot about it. It may have been 9 months, 10 months, and I heard from Denise that you wanted to license the film. I mean, it blew me away, I knew that there was more life to this film, but I just didn't know how to bring it to people. But when I sat there and listened, I'm like, oh my God. I want to be able to bring this to people, and so it touch their hearts, right? Soften them, make them realize that, what? It could be your grandfather. It could be you.
Thank you, Tracii. Let's take a look at the forgotten ones.
My life ain't always been homeless. You understand? I used to own a house up in Silver Lake Hills all the way to the top overlooking the city. And from there up in Lower Canyon on Beach Knoll, I owned the house. I wasn't rented, I owned it. But they took everything from me. The government, for what they say, income tax evasion, and sent me to Terminal Island for 4 years. And when I come out of there with nothing. I'd get me a grocery cart and go recycling up in the hills. You understand? I'd make $100 a day with a grocery cart. And then I'd panhandle side the freeway. That's how I survived.
Thanks, Tracii. Thanks to all of you. I mean, Black Public Media has funded or distributed all of your films. And so now I just want to take a few moments to talk a little bit about Black Public Media. So for nearly 50 years, Black Public Media, a nonprofit media arts institution based in New York City, has championed independent filmmakers like the ones we have here across the country through funding, professional development, and distribution initiatives. Our work ensures that PBS and the national public media system reflect the global Black experience through documentary, narrative, and short films. Most recently, we've expanded our support to immersive media makers, helping our visionary storytellers shape the future of emerging platforms. At our core, we're committed to building a more equitable and inclusive media landscape for all. All right, so now that they know a little bit about Black public media, I want to know a little bit more about your filmmaking journeys, all right? Sophia, how did making this film, I Am Who I Say I Am, how did it expand your filmmaking practice?
So the expansion was interesting because at the time, I work a lot with social media, like in my day-to-day, but I hadn't yet done a film that was supposed to be for it. So it was really interesting trying to think. You were saying earlier about how your professor was like, cut it down, less is more. That is like, there's nothing truer to social media than like that phrase right there, less is more. So I think it was really about, you know, I loved all of those three people and I was so grateful. There could have been a whole other episode just on Britt's mom, Sharon, because she's such a charismatic person. So I think for me, it was really just like this sort of like intensive to really say like, what's the most important thing tonally, not just what they're saying, but tonally and visually and really like refining that. So yeah, that was probably something that came out of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And the less is more for my professor was really like, he just didn't want wall-to-wall talking, you know? And so for me, it was really about learning that language of finding the spaces, you know, like the beats.
Right.
And that was a process for me because, you know, I'm words, I want to hear more, you know? I just made a film, you know, this summer, and there are no words, you know, there's no dialogue, you know, maybe that you hear some talking in one of the scenes, and I think it's beautiful, and it's a micro short, 3 minutes, amazing. You know, okay. So I'm really just, you know, about exploring the form.
So I need for each of you, what's coming up next? I'll start with you, Tracii.
I'm working on a piece about Jamaican funeral traditions, and I shot my grandmother's funeral and all of the surrounding events. And so, you know, she's been gone a few years now, so I'm excited to kind of dig into that footage and make something. I really am about making, you know.
All right. Divad?
I'm working on a documentary about this particular moment in history where folks from the community in the Bronx fought against the production of a film called Fort Apache, the Bronx, which starred Paul Newman and Pam Grier. And so folks really were upset about this film, and in 1980 had a year-long campaign where they not only disrupted the filming of the production of the film, but also boycotted the screening and distribution, and it resulted in the collapse of the production company. I think this short film has inspired me to, you know, use an experimental voice to mediate the voice of the Bronx through also different media depictions of the Bronx. And so I'm really excited, and I'm in the research phase, looking at different, looking in the archives for different representations of the Bronx through media right now.
Nice.
Amazing.
Nice, all right.
Very cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sophia?
I always say I'm never making a documentary again, and then I end up making documentaries. But I am making a documentary right now called Rising Tides that is actually being supported by Black Public Media, which I was so excited about. That's about America's legacy of Black oyster farmers and the current state of Black oyster farmers in America. There used to be, for those who don't know, thousands of Black captains and oyster farmers along the coasts of the United States, and there's it's more in the dozens now, and there's a lot of reasons for why, but we're kind of looking at what could be the last season of some of these oyster farmers. So yeah,
All right.
It's been a process. It will be when it's done.
Yeah.
I hope.
We will.
Can't wait
I'm
to
looking
see
forward to all these films.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. This has been an amazing conversation, really, truly. Sophia Clark, Tracii McGregor, Divad Durant, thank you for spending the time here at Frame by Frame. And I hope you have enjoyed this fascinating discussion as much as I have. You can catch their films and many others from Black Public Media on Frame by Frame, found on CUNY TV's YouTube channel and the CUNY TV app. Also, please follow Black Public Media's YouTube channel for a range of exceptional films. Enjoy watching.